we took on, it was probably close to a 48-hour ongoing, fight and push with the Taliban in the area. So it was a pretty shitty welcome. I've got shit blowing up behind me, and it was, really working me. My lead was feeding me Xanax and Valium, out of her pocket. That he was on guard duty and got shot took a shot to the head, and wasn't found for a couple hours later because nobody had went up there to check on him. I'm not going in to chase bullets, so everybody's a soldier first.
All right, hey, welcome, Scott.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here, man. Super appreciate it. So we're just gonna start off. Just tell me a little bit about where you grew up, where you're from, and a little bit about your upbringing.
Okay. I was born in North Carolina. Lived down there for about 9 years of my early life. Moved to Virginia after my dad got a job offer up here. My mom, my dad, my sister, and I moved up here. Franklin County, so about half an hour south of where we are now here in Roanoke. Spent, all my life until, now in the local area. Didn't actually leave until going into the service. This is home.
Yeah, you doing any sports growing up?
I wrestled for 6 years through middle school and high school. Didn't really take to much else. It didn't really appeal to me. Even to date, I don't really watch many sports or anything like that. It wasn't really my forte. I was always more, I guess, craftsy. I was always sketching, in sketchbooks and stuff like that, taking art classes. But I did really enjoy wrestling. I did pretty decent with it.
All right. You have any siblings?
I have one older sister. She's 5 years older than myself. She's married now, still in the area. She's got 3 boys. So.
Okay. So any significant stories about your upbringing? Was it pretty smooth or?
It was decent. To my knowledge, I didn't have like a family background, military or anything like that. My dad, now I know he served 4 years in the reserves or guard somewhere, something like that. But it wasn't anything. He was just trying to, get some stability and go to school and stuff, help us out because, they worked for everything they had, when we were growing up. It wasn't like we were an average, middle class family. So
I'm just curious to know if you've had any significant stories about your upbringing. If anything might have stemmed from your childhood and upbringing. You know what I mean?
And that's kind of where I was going with my pop. He was always kind of a hard ass. He was real OCD, methodical. In everything he did. My sister, she was, prom queen, Miss Teen Franklin County, straight A's. She never got any issues. I always gave them the hard time, so I kind of got the blunt of the discipline, and stuff like that. Parents didn't beat me. I wasn't abused as a child. I'll put that out there first off. But as a kid, you don't understand what they're trying to instill in you because you're a kid. Right. So I had an interesting, childhood, and I guess in my point of view, whereas, I was grounded a lot. I acted out, when I got, the opportunity to move out and try to be on my own, I did that. But years later, it kind of circles back around, and I'm like, okay, I understand why he did this, why he got frustrated at me and, yelled instead of just talking to me or something like that. I was a real dickhead. So,
right.
But a lot of my morals and values and disciplines that I carried and I think that helped me, in service were instilled, in childhood just through expectations from my mom and dad. We had chores growing up, shit like that.
It always takes us a little bit of time to mature and appreciate
Oh,
what
yeah.
we've been taught.
Oh, yeah.
What inspired you to join the military?
I never would have guessed, I never would have placed myself in service. One of my buddies and I, we went to Myrtle Beach one year, and he had just gotten discharged from the Marines because he had tore his ACL, I think, in basic. And so they medically discharged him, and he propositioned me, and said basically that he wanted to look into going into another branch, see if someone else would take him because he wanted to go back in. Would I be interested in talking to the recruiters with him? So I said, sure, and took the ASVAB, did well. They offered me $20,000 as a sign-on, and they didn't take him. I said, where do you want me to sign? Money talked. It wasn't one of those stories for me where I was like, I'm gonna go serve my country at that point in time.
Right.
And I wasn't in it for the school or anything like that. I don't know, I think I was just bored, and the money appealed to me at the time.
You just felt like you needed to do something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like most of us, man. It's just we don't really have a plan for our life, and the military is a really great option, right?
Yeah.
And what branch was this?
Army.
Army. Okay. So, what job did you sign up for?
So I went in as a 92 Golf, which is food service.
Okay.
I've been a cook most of my life. I've got over 18 years in food service now. So it was comfortable for me. I knew what I was getting into. It felt like reassurance for my family, as well. I'm not going in to chase bullets.
Right.
So, but it's everybody does it, I guess. Everybody's a soldier first. So you get in, and it doesn't matter what your MOS is. I still went through air assault school, and foreign language classes and combatives, and when I started getting tired of the monotonous, like day-to-day cafeteria cooking in a dining facility for all the Joes, I got pulled onto a culinary team, and that kind of lit a new fire under my ass. And I was like, all right, this is what I want to do.
Nice.
I love to cook, so it seemed like an easy fit for me, but it was the right fit, and I did it for 9 years.
Nice.
With service.
What was it? What was it like for you going into boot camp? Was it a culture shock, or when you got into boot camp?
It was I don't know. It didn't really faze me. I know there were a lot of people that you see struggle through the being away from their family and friends, and going through the whole program, being yelled at, by the drill sergeants. Like I said, I gave my dad hell, growing up, so I got yelled at plenty. I didn't care about the drill sergeants yelling at me in my face. But then the structure, I know how to follow rules, and yes sir, no sir, yes drill sergeant, no drill sergeant. It wasn't a hard adjustment for me there. So I didn't have any trouble with it. I was damn out of shape. I've always been about the same weight, but I've always been a smoker, so I had some difficulty there in the beginning getting my body in shape when I went to basic, but they do it for you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. After you graduated boot camp, where'd you go from there?
I went to Fort Campbell, Kentucky, AIT. I went to Fort Lee here in Virginia, quartermaster. That was a 10-week program, I believe, for food service. Graduated from there, and then my first duty station was Fort Campbell, Kentucky.
Okay.
101st.
And then when you got to Kentucky, what was your assignment?
I was attached to 1st and 320th Field Artillery. My assignment was to cook in the dining facility for Strike Brigade, and it was an everyday job. Cooks were the first ones in, the last ones out most times. As far as up in the morning down at night. Not entirely, but we worked 7 days a week. You lose your danzas, your holidays, because Joe's got to eat. But it was good. I've always said if I came down on orders tomorrow to go back to Fort Campbell, I'd pack a bag and be feet. I mean, I loved it down there. I really did. It was just it was a family for me.
So I'm curious, can you describe the difference between being a food service worker in the military compared to being a chef here on the outside? Because you mentioned earlier, right, everybody's first a soldier. So essentially, they are training you to be, you might be food service worker because this is what you like to do, but they're also making sure that you're combat ready, right? So what's life like being a food service worker in the Army?
I mean, you have your job. Everybody has their job. So you go in the morning, you do PT. If you have to be in the dining facility in the morning, you'd be in there, and then when you get off, you go do PT. And then same thing as everybody else. I mean, outside of cooking, which all that was you're feeding X amount of soldiers. You might have 800, you might have 500, whatever. You normally know your head count that comes through your dining facility, but you go in there and you prep out for your lunch or breakfast, lunch, and dinner meals. You've got your shift changes. There's probably 14 or more cooks, working in and out of a dining facility. So it's pretty. It runs like a well-oiled machine. I mean, it's not a difficult thing, but outside of the cooking, we do everything that everybody else did. Like I said, Eagle First Responder, courses, or hey, after you get out of the defect today, you got to go to the motor pool and PMCS vehicles, or download a 40-foot Connex and inventory it, and reorganize that, or you've got a UA, whatever. I mean, we did everything everybody else did, and then cooked for guys in between. So. It was it's just a job.
Right. Did you serve anywhere else besides Kentucky?
Fort Bliss, Texas, which was not my favorite duty station. I just didn't like it down there. It wasn't a great place.
What didn't you like about it?
I came to Bliss straight out of Afghanistan. I came down on orders in Afghanistan for Bliss, and when I got there, it was just, it felt surreal. I went from desert to dust storm to dust storm, Afghani to Hispanic as far as like foreign languages. I got put in a non-deployable training unit, so we were out in the field all the time, faking the funk, so that really messed with my head. It felt like I never really left Afghanistan, and it looked so much like I'd walk out of my apartment sometimes and look at Trans Mountain, which is a big mountain range that runs through El Paso, and it looked just like walking out of a tent on Kandahar Airfield and looking at the mountain range over there, in Afghanistan. Like it was surreal. So it played a large role in my mental stability and my decline at that time, in readjusting and coming back home.
If you don't mind, can we back up a bit and talk about you going to Afghanistan?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I deployed with Fort Campbell in April of 2010. We flew into Kandahar. That's the hub everybody goes through, as I understand it. We got debriefed, issued equipment, all kinds of shit, and then pushed out from there and flew over the mountain into the Arghandab River Valley, which they called the Devil's Playground at the time. And I think it was, I don't even remember, I want to say it was RC East, as far as everyone understood it. That were feet on ground over there in Afghanistan. I could be wrong. I said it's been a while. I don't remember, but it was a real shit show. It was like nothing I had ever experienced. It was a different world. So when we first got over there, everybody flew into Jelawar, which was the one established main fob at the time. We later set up another operating post called Terra Nova, and those two kind of worked in conjunction with each other. But outside of those operating posts, we had smaller COPs and strong points that we had set up before, or they had set up before we had even got there. So my E7, when we got to Jelawar, came to me and notified me that she trusted me and she wanted to put me in charge of feeding a small platoon of guys on a COP called COP Times, which was right out. It's probably a couple of miles from Jelawar on the edge of this pomegranate field next to one of the little towns in the area. And
what does COP mean?
COP means a command operating post. FOB would be a forward operating post. And then, like I said, outside of that, we had smaller operating posts called strong points that we'd set up to kind of push the opposition back out, away from us further. But when I got to COP Times, the 82nd was still there. They had been there for 14 months, I think, already. And so those guys were, they were done.
Been in the
Just
shit.
losing it, getting attacked every day to every other day. We were in a bad spot. And it was weird. I'd never been shot at, and it's like being a freshman in high school, and all the older kids are like, oh, fresh meat, these guys. Well, that's kind of how it was. We got to COP Times, and it was like the Taliban was like, all right, we got a new cycle, so let's hit them hard. Within the first, I'd say 2-3 days of being there and starting to learn like the patrol routes and stuff from the 82nd, our guys, we took on, it was probably close to a 48-hour ongoing, fight and push with the Taliban in the area. So it was a pretty shitty welcome, to the Argonaut, which I didn't expect, a red carpet, but it was like, hey, we're here. This is real. So it was an interesting time. Like I said, we got attacked multiple times a week, until it got cold. And they don't like the cold, so it tapered off a little bit in the winter.
So it became just a daily, it sounds like you just got up knowing well, today we're gonna get fucking shot at. Let's be prepared, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
It didn't ever really change. There were some days where you might breeze through the day and nothing happens, but they were few and far between. Something was always happening. There was an afternoon I had gotten a big flatbed full of palletized water dropped off, and I had this storage shed behind my little containerized kitchen that I was cooking for these guys out of. That I keep all my dry goods and stuff in. So I was organizing it and stacking all these cases of water, and I had water. From probably 10 feet to my left, all the way to me. It just, from floor to ceiling, I had been stacking all this water, and we started taking indirect mortar fire. And the whole damn, ceiling came in on me. All the waters came down on me. That was just I don't know. It was just something that happened over there. We had multiple vehicles, that got hit with IEDs. We took rocket fire. Some of those hit the HESCO barriers, or it was. You're always expecting something.
Did you guys lose anybody out there?
Yeah, we lost several guys. It's I don't know. Yeah, we lost several. A couple to IEDs. One of our guys got shot while he was on guard duty, and I don't think rounds were being done properly. This wasn't on our immediate fob. It was the one next to us, Cop Nolan. That he was on guard duty and got shot took a shot to the head, and wasn't found for a couple hours later because nobody had went up there to check on him. But yeah, there's a lot of shit. You see a lot of stuff over there. I mean, even outside of your guys that go down, there was a point where we had this system. It looked like a pair of binoculars. I believe it was called the Hyde system. And basically you could retinally scan. You would take it, through a city on patrol and scan people into it. Put their information, their pictures and all that into it. And then later, if you come across a body, you get into a firefight or something like that, and you need to identify the body, you can scan it with the Hyde, come back to you. But that's how we tracked outsiders, in the area that weren't regulars, because we had all the regulars. If we didn't have them in Hyde, then there's something weird. But I remember walking around a body for a couple of days. They just sat, on cop tines, waiting for pickup for some guys to come out there and pick it up. But yeah, you see a lot of death over there. It's weird. It's I don't know. It's a hard thing to live with.
Did you lose any of close friends of yours?
Not directly. The ones that I have lost, weren't over there. There've been a couple of buddies that have come home and taken their life, or hell, one of the medics that I got really close with over there, he was a captain. He was actually from Killeen, Texas. Came home to visit his family. Got shot in Killeen, just over some bullshit. I don't know what really happened. But I mean, I didn't lose anyone in Afghanistan that was severely close to me. But I had several acquaintances that I'd met, crossed paths with, served with in other scenarios that did fall over there. And their pictures pop up every year on social media, and I always hear from other buddies and groups that I'm in, when the memorial's coming up each year, to remember them. I always try to take the time out to think about them. I know it's, the few I can name are Nolan, Stout, Stansberry, King. Those were four that I remember vividly, and we set up strong points in honor of them, based on their location that they fell. So we had a Cop Stansberry, a Cop Nolan, Cop Stout. And those were all strong points that we set up after those soldiers went down, and in honor of them. But yeah.
How long were you guys out in Afghanistan?
We were there for 11 months.
Wow.
11 months.
11 months of straight combat, it sounds like.
Yeah, and like I said, there was some breaks. The winter was pretty cool.
Yeah.
For the most part. It was moderated. We didn't really have a big fight then, but.
Did you ever expect to find yourself in that scenario, signing up to, be a food service worker?
No, and like I said, everybody's a soldier first. I never, I never thought that it wouldn't happen. You know, I mean, if you're getting shot at, you know, we're all issued weapons. You know, you get up there and you shoot back. I mean, it's your life or theirs. I'm not going to be standing in at the kitchen cooking while all my buddies are being shot at. But no, I never really. I don't think it became real until it was happening. But you definitely sink or swim in those scenarios. I've seen people freeze up that have, you know, hunted their whole life, you know, been raised around, you know, shooting guns and stuff like that, and I've seen all kinds of different reactions. It's you never really know what you're gonna get, I guess, in that scenario until you're in it. So.
While you were out there in Afghanistan, did it ever cross your mind did you develop an appreciation for life back home, everything you had back home?
Oh yeah, I mean you see what they don't have, you know, and what they go through to live the, you know, what's the word, humble lives that they do, I guess, because and there's a lot of good people over there. I can't denounce that at all. You know, it was one of the really cool things is the locals. You know, like I said, we were right on the edge of a pomegranate orchard. They bring us bushels of fresh pomegranates, you know, stuff like that. We had kids that, you know, would come onto the operating post and pick up trash, and we give them, you know, $5-10, which is just a lot for them, or give them, you know, a bunch of candy. They love sweet shit. So I mean, there's good people over there, and they really, the good ones work hard to have what they have, and it definitely is eye-opening, you know, as far as how much we have here, you know, and how for granted we take, you know, a lot of the things that we have.
What was it like when you got back from Afghanistan?
So when I came back, I spent about roughly 2 weeks clearing Fort Campbell, and then I PCS there, went to El Paso. Mm-hmm. So I got to El Paso. I think it was around September of 2011, I believe, and there was I don't know, it was kind of slow going at first. You know, you got to do the whole in-processing and shit like that. And I was still, I feel like, in my kind of like honeymoon phase of coming back from Afghanistan. It hadn't really hit. And I think when I got to El Paso is when it really started to dawn on me, because I'm looking around again and I'm like, fuck, more sand. Like, it's 100 degrees outside again. Like, you know, it was just, it was really surreal, looking around the landscape and seeing nothing but desert again. And that same mountain range that I just was looking at in Afghanistan for 11 months. And I didn't really know how to feel about it. I was walking, you know, before I was walking out of a mud hut that was fixed to a little shanty, you know, sleeping chew that we had built over there in Afghanistan, to walking out to looking at this mountain range. And now I'm walking out my apartment door and looking at a different mountain range that looks, you know, almost exactly the same. There's a dust storm blowing through, and I'm like, God damn, like, it was really weird. I felt like I didn't come home, really. You know, I didn't have any friends out there. You know, I didn't know anybody in this new unit, and I was 24, 25 hours from, you know, my family. It sucked. And I identified it pretty quick, because I was struggling, and started, you know, reaching out to mental health and things. But I don't know, it was a lot of, I think it was too little too late. And then my situation that I was in, as far as the unit that I was in, being a non-deployable training unit, like we were out in the field all the time, faking the funk. So there's just never any regular day-to-day for me anymore. It's like I never left that fight. You know, it was Op 4. It wasn't, you know, Taliban. We were in El Paso, but to me, in my mind, it just really wasn't home. I wasn't home. I had an incident in downtown El Paso. I was walking with my now ex-wife, and a truck backfired, and I threw her on the ground, myself, and you know, took cover and tried to react to contact. Kind of lost time and space for a minute, and she was able to kind of shake me out of it. And after that, I ended up spending about 7 days in a mental not a mental hospital, but there's a mental health unit at William Beaumont out there in El Paso, and it was just a care facility to diagnose me with what was going on, and that's when I was diagnosed with PTSD and anxiety and sleeping disorders, stuff like that. And I think that's when I decided that I didn't want to stay in El Paso, and I wanted to try to transition out of the Army to focus on me and my life, because my marriage was crumbling, and it did, which it is what it is because it wasn't meant to be. But there was a lot of shit that went on up in the noggin, you know, around that time. So I ended up getting an offer because when I signed my contract, it was for 8 years. It was an 8-year contract, and I came off active duty with 6 and some change there at the end of it, because I was given an option to get out and finish my contract in the reserves, or to get out and just finish inactively because of what I'd recently gone through with my mental health and readjustment, and how it wasn't going well. But I chose to get out and finish in the reserves and, you know, give that a try. That wasn't, you know, I figured that wouldn't be a hard beast to tackle. 1 weekend a month, 1 weekend, or whatever it is, 2 weekends a month, 1 week a year. I don't remember.
Something like that. I think
something
it's
like that.
1 week in a month and 2 weeks out in the summer or something like that.
You do it AT once a year.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I thought that was going to help exponentially, you know, me getting out, coming back home to family. But I think the damage was done, and I had to work on fixing myself, and El Paso wasn't helping that, so I had to get out of there, and that's when I came home. So.
Did you notice were you having trouble like sleeping? Did you experience like any type of nightmares or any of that? I
was having reoccurring nightmares. I'd have night sweats, night terrors. I'd wake up soaking wet. I mean, like someone had dumped a bucket of water on me, and you can't lay enough towels down in the bed. You ain't got enough damn clothes to change into, you know, through the night. Like it got so nerve-wracking. I would sleep all the time. I you know, was on edge. When I finally got, you know, my first job once I got back home, my dad, you know, he got me a job in the factory that he worked in, which was like manufacturing plastics for companies like Scott's, you know, putting potting soil, they made like the bags and shit for these companies. So it was a big factory, and the section that I worked in was called conversion, and right behind me they had this department where they would test the seals on all the bags that we, you know, made. So they'd strap them onto like this air cannon and push air into them to see how they held air. But these bags, they would pop, and the percussion behind them, it was like boom, So my lead was, I was leaving work daily just shaking like a leaf, on edge, because I've got shit blowing up behind me, and it was really working me. My lead was feeding me Xanax and Valium, out of her pocket because I couldn't get anything from the VA. The doctors that I had seen, they didn't want to prescribe benzols and stuff like that, which I get. I understand medication's addictive, and I get why they did it. But what they were giving me wasn't helping, and I was still struggling hard with all that shit in my workplace. I ended up ultimately having to leave that job because I asked for a relocation in the factory, and they couldn't do anything. So I told them, if you can't work with me here and understand what I'm going through, then I can't stay. So I left there and ended up working my way back into food service on the outside, which is how I've moved up, and secured this position as chef now.
Have you tried to get help through the VA healthcare system?
I have, and I will say, out the gate, I won't denounce what the VA does for us and offers. They have a lot of good benefits, and there's a lot of good people there, but they have to deal with a lot of people, and I can't imagine what they go through. But I tried to get help through the VA. I went through prolonged exposure therapy with their mental health department. They reconfirmed, PTSD, anxiety, depression, sleep, night terrors, night sweats. I want to say they said they gave me some sort of adjustment disorder there in the beginning. But at the end of the day, what it all came down to, as far as fixing the problem was, well, let's try this medication. Let's try this. The prolonged exposure was a really cool program. It sucked because as part of the program, you'd be given homework in the sense that, if I said, I don't like going to bars that are crowded, because I can't have eyes on everybody in the situation. I don't like it. Or I don't like sitting in a restaurant with my back to the door because I don't know what's going to come through that door. And I want to be able to see it. So they give you homework in the sense that, they'd be like, all right, well, tonight, what your homework is to go out, to the bar or to a restaurant and be around those, crowds of people and sit with your back to the door. And then come back and you would record it into your phone via voice recording, and you'd play that back the next week, that you go and see your therapist. And it was it circled around avoidance, how avoidance is bad. And in doing that, you're only conditioning your body to not like these things. So that in itself really did help me a lot. I think that program was a big turning point for me in kind of getting a grip on what was going on in here. So I did that. I've talked to a few, therapists, psychiatrists. I struggled for a little while with some drug use. I went through a rehabilitation program there at the VA. It's kind of like group. I did that for a year and graduated that program. I've tried, putting in for claims and things like that, and it all kind of got knocked back. I think the end. Or the conclusion of it all, they gave me a 0% disability, and I want to say they said that there wasn't enough information or something, or the paper trail wasn't strong enough, which is absolute bullshit. I mean, if you just look at my activity with the VA, there should be enough of a paper trail. I mean, the prolonged exposure, the therapist, the rehabilitation through the drug use. I mean, a lot of soldiers go through those things, and some of those soldiers do get help and do get compensated, but some don't. I don't know how to. I do know how to fight it. You know, the squeaky wheel gets the oil, and you have to stay on them and hound them, and refile, and
It gets stressful though, right?
It's so much. It's so many. There's so much jumping through hoops, and going through this show for them, and I'm tired. I don't want to do that anymore. I don't have the time to devote to doing that. I work 65 hours a week. In a kitchen that's 138, 140 degrees on the line. I'll be in there from 9 a.m. until 11 o'clock at night. Some nights still 1. And it's exhausting, mentally and physically. Coupled with all the other things going on in my life, bills and upcoming plans and things like that. So I don't have the time or the patience to go out to the VA and sit in there and wait around for a day. I mean, you go in there for, I don't know, let's say I got a sinus infection, and I got to go in there and talk to my primary care provider, and she's like, oh yeah, you got a sinus infection. Okay, well I could have told you that. Well, it took you 2 hours to see a primary care provider, and then you got to wait another hour to get your meds, and I mean it's a whole thing to go out to the VA for anything.
It's fucking draining.
And I despise it. I hate going through the steps, and I understand that's what you have to do,
But you started getting help for your mental health while you were still in the Army.
in service.
And then they offered you, because of what you were going through, to you had an 8-year contract to do the rest of your time in the reserves. Yes. Because of that status.
Yep.
And then for them to say there's not enough paper trail.
Yeah, and I still have my entire medical jacket, on disc from active duty. I've printed all that off because you can't give them a CD at the VA. They can't take that. I might be giving them a virus or something. Yeah. I mean, they have all my information. Everything's there on paper. Everything. So for anybody to say that there wasn't a problem, or the problem's been fixed, I think on one of the documents I have, I believe it was actually the prolonged exposure, the psychiatrist that was treating me, somewhere in the synopsis of the paperwork, that in her notes, I'm not going to say verbatim, I'm not going to quote her, but it said something along the lines of he is cured, or he's well. Well, I don't know what she meant by that. I don't know. But in my mind, what I said was what I meant. Prolonged exposure helped me exponentially.
Right.
I mean, it did. I probably wouldn't be sitting here talking to you if it hadn't. But
that helps.
It doesn't fix the problem. It kind of smothers it, or I don't know what the word is. It stifles it a little bit. Mm-hmm. It gives you skills to deal with these things that you're going through. But I still have nightmares.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that you're not feeling everything you just fucking described.
Yeah.
It just means that you're starting to learn how to manage it better.
Right.
But you still feel it inside of you, right? I'm sure when you still hear a loud noise outside, it fucking startles you.
I hate the 4th of July down here. and it's not even like the bottle rockets and shit, it's the mortars because of the percussion. At the end of the day, like that's the whole thing with the noises. I wasn't even allowed to open cans of scallops in the kitchen for the longest time because they came in these paint cans, and like when you'd be prying the lids off, there was so much, I don't know, force behind that lid that when you'd get to a certain point, it would boom, and it'd shoot the damn lid up in the air. And the first time that I ever opened one of them damn things in the kitchen over there, I'm prying around it. I'm getting ready to make bacon wrapped scallops, and I get to that point, and it said pow, and I threw the can back. You know, I pushed everything on the cutting board in front of me off. You know, I stumbled back, and my executive chef, he's like, "You all right?" And I'm trembling, and I'm like, "Yeah, I just need a minute." You know, and I walked out on the back dock, smoked a cigarette, and called my girlfriend at the time. I'm like, "Hey, I need you to bring me my medicine." I was like, "I'm set an episode at work. I need to calm down." I didn't think to bring my medicine with me into the kitchen, like, so. It's a fucking can of scallops. I don't know. I never. It's stupid things sometimes. The car backfiring, like I said, that's what got me in El Paso. My dad, I was cooking. I think it was like a Father's Day. I was grilling for him down at his and my mom's house, and he come down. Their house and garage are detached, and there's like a sidewalk that runs down into the backyard from there. So I'm cooking down on the back patio, grilling, and he comes walking down that sidewalk and lights a string of black cats and tosses them, you know, towards the wood line. And next thing I know, I'm grilling along, and you know, and I hit the ground. The same kind of thing, you know. And he realized immediately what he had done, and he wasn't thinking. And I mean, that's not his responsibility to think about shit like that. Like, he was just having fun. But it threw a wrench in our night because my nerves were shot after that. You know, and you shouldn't be affected to the degree, you know, that it affects you from something like that. I would love to go enjoy a fireworks show anymore, but I mean, my wife knows, you know, that I can't do that now. She's been there for me through episodes like that. So I mean, it sucks living with a disability of that nature.
I understand you're getting ready to get married. How important is it to you to have somebody by your side to support you like that?
It's very important. Family's a huge thing for me, and I give her so much credit, you know, for supporting me in everything that I've gone through. I mean, and to date, like I said, you know, I still have nightmares sometimes. I still get night sweats. You know, she deals with the changing of the sheets, you know, the putting towels down, me, you know, getting up, walking around in the middle of the night because I can't sleep. She knows that, you know, when the 4th of July is rolling around and I go downstairs and, you know, in the morning and I forget like my triple flange, because I still got my triple flange, you know, earplugs, and I'll carry those down with me when I go to work. So when I leave out to go get a beer, I'll just put those in, you know, and go get a beer, you know, and go home. But she'll bring those to me if I forget them, you know. And she helps me with everything.
That's great, man. Glad you found someone like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Is there anything you want to say before we wrap this up?
No. And I mean, I know I like what you guys are doing. I think this is a cool concept, and it'll be helpful, you know, for other people to see kind of the indirect outcome, you know, of everything that is endured by, you know, our guys that have done all that over there. That
Yeah.
have been over there and experienced all that shit.
How, if you don't mind, I mean, what would you think about this? How did it feel right now, just talking about this and telling your story?
It's always, I don't know. It's sometimes it's a little more emotional than others, but I mean there was a lot of emotions felt, you know, while I was over there experiencing all that shit, and even when I got home, experiencing all the shit show that I went through when I came home, you know, trying to get back to good, and this is you know, I think a really good thing. It's I always think it is good to talk about it. Like I said, that prolonged exposure program avoidance, you know, is not good. So I mean, I genuinely I don't have a problem talking about it, and it's just the situations, I guess, that you discuss. You know, can get a little hairy sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. Do you have any friends that have committed suicide or taken their life since you've been back?
We had one of the guys that was actually on Cop Times with me. He probably wasn't any older than 20 years old. He was a kid. Made it through the entirety of the shit show that we endured over in Afghanistan, and wasn't home more than 2 weeks. Took his life. He hung himself in his backyard. Came back home. Wife, kid, newborn. I mean, I think they had the baby right before we deployed. So, and I mean, I don't know what his reasoning was. He probably just didn't feel like he had, I don't know, any help. He probably just didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, there have been a few others. I don't, you know, to sit here in front of you and I've had this discussion with my doctors and therapists and tell you that it hadn't crossed my mind, I'd be lying to your face. I think everybody at some point has thought about it. You know, would it be easier? Goddamn right, it'd be easier. But I don't have the balls to do that, and I also wouldn't do that to my family, my friends, because I know that doesn't hurt me. That hurts everybody else that I love.
Right.
So I would never do that to them. But I want to say I understand, you know, what a person, you know, goes through. But you can. I mean, and that's why we've tried so hard to get a grip on veteran suicide and things like, you know, of that nature. And it's so damn difficult because I truly believe it's a temporary lapse in sanity, and it's just you're at the end of that rope. You don't know what to do anymore.
Yeah, I imagine you've been at that point to where the stress was just so just you were just so fucking stressed
Definitely.
out that where you're like, I understand why this guy took his life. Like I could understand it, because if he was feeling any worse than I'm feeling right now, right? I totally get it, because it's fucking it. Yeah, I get it, man. I get what you're talking about.
It's mind numbing, like, you know, but no, I try to stay headstrong myself, and I have a great support system that is my family and friends, and I hold on to that.
Yeah. Well, Scott, listen, man, the people that see this, that hear your story, you're going to fucking impact a lot of people, man. And I really appreciate you being here telling your story. And,
Yes, sir.
Thank you for your fucking service, man, from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you.
Push it to the limit, I can't go no more. Red light, no way, I'm coming back home. Long dirt road,